Thank you very much, Jeff. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Great. Lovely to see you all here today. So to get to it, we have a very important event taking place next Friday, March the 8th, involving another example of a waste of state resources, a constitutional referendum, the cost of which is considered to amount to at least 20 million euros. 20 million euros would go a long way to pay for accommodation and support for homeless people, whether Irish or otherwise. But no, this government would rather use it to deceive the electorate into voting women and mothers out of the Constitution, and to do it on International Women's Day. There is no mandate from the Irish people for these proposed changes in the Constitution. So I just want to deal with the two amendments. I know many of you would be familiar with them, but just bear with me and you'll see where I'm going with this. The first proposed amendment, as you know, removes the special connection between family and marriage and provides an additional reference to what constitutes the family, which means it's now going to be founded on marriage and other durable relationships. You've heard this term over and over, so stay with me on this. I cannot emphasize this enough. There is no reference to single parents, lone parents, cohabitating couples in this proposed amendment, as is being widely suggested. This is just misinformation or disinformation being peddled principally by Minister Roderick O'Gorman and by government-funded NGOs, principally the National Women's Council. One could be forgiven for thinking they knew something that the rest of us do not. Now hold that thought, because I'll come back to that in just a moment. So who is the body that is tasked with dealing with misinformation and disinformation during elections? You guessed it, yes, it's the Electoral Commission. But mysteriously, their powers to deal with misinformation and disinformation have not yet been enforced by ministerial order. How convenient is that? This gives a free rein to O'Gorman and his pals. So when you combine that information with the following, I think you will join the dots. This government rushed through this legislation using guillotine motions, with little or no Dáil input. They chose the phrase other durable relationships, even though they tell us that it will be a matter for the courts to define the phrase other durable relationships after the referendum in the event of a yes vote. So what do we have in our legal system at the moment that has the exact same phrase, durable relationships? Yes, you guessed it, the transposed EU directive, which is currently being analysed and interpreted by the Superior Court decisions. So expect a plan. The plan will be, in the event of a yes vote, to encourage the courts to adopt the reasoning and interpretations regarding the EU transposed directive. As how else will the courts divine the will of the people? Because, as you know, all we have are three words. They have not been interpreted. So how is the court going to interpret them? How is the court going to divine the will of the people? And the only way they can really do that is if they are encouraged to use the same interpretation that they're using for the EU directive. That's something that I think we need to give consideration to. If that happens, then we will have a further melding and merging of EU law and Irish constitutional law, another nail in the coffin for our own constitution, and a further step towards the creation of a powerful supranational EU superstate. Job well done. Thank you, Roderick, from the boys and girls up above. Oops, or should I say they, them, it. Have I missed a pronoun? Now, with regard to the second referendum, it's known as the carers referendum. The state is taking away the respect and acknowledgement for women in the home, and also their obligation to endeavour to ensure that mothers do not have to work outside the home due to economic necessity. and they are going to replace it with a very vague article that recognizes care between family members, but imposes no obligation on the state to provide for such carers. Thus, what the state is doing is to propose changes which effectively involves them abrogating their responsibility in two areas. One, by removing from themselves any responsibility for mothers in the home, and two, in the proposed amendment, by leaving it up to family members themselves to care for one another. You're on your own, guys, if this goes through. The use of the word strive to support such carers is meaningless. Strive simply means to try, and it imposes no obligation on the state, contrary to what is being stated out there. So it's utterly meaningless and does not legally oblige or mandate the state to do anything. In addition, and I don't think anyone has really mentioned this, some of you may be aware of it, that the concept of home is also referred to in the two articles that the government proposed to remove from the Constitution. And if they are removed, and if this referendum passes, I would have a concern that a child's right to a home may no longer be protected with the eradication of home and mother from the Constitution. So as a proud Irish woman who can trace her ancestry back generations, I am deeply concerned at what this government proposed to do to the mothers of Ireland. They are showing no respect for women or mothers or the importance of home life. Women of Éire, you are being eradicated. You have been sold out by the National Women's Council, and it's your hard-earned money that is being used to pay them to do it. You are being replaced. We have a government now that supports the contention that any man can become a woman just by means of a declaration. They have weaponized sport against you. We have a government that supports a deeply, deeply disturbing transgender ideology. We now have government ministers who cannot even define what a woman is. This is part of a much bigger agenda, a deep, dark agenda, and many of you here already know this. So as for next Friday, just remember, it's a trap. Don't fall for it. Vote no and no. Bless you and thank you for listening.